And we move on to Jack Cartwright versus Jose Johnson. I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of English fans out there very excited for Jack Cartwright to be fighting on Dana White's Contender Series. There is a world where Jack Cartwright just gets signed directly to the UFC because the strength of schedule is pretty good. He's a former Cage Warriors champion as well, but he hasn't fought for about a year and a half, and the last win was by disqualification, so it's kind of hard to justify someone come into the UFC directly off a disqualification win. So that's fair, but he has got some really good wins in his record. You know, he beat Gerardo Fanny, who's a pretty hot prospect right now. I believe he lost his last fight, but he's still a pretty good win to have on your record. A guy that was 15-6 at the time, a guy that's 12-2 at the time, and Scott Malone, who was 6-2 at the time. Jose Johnson, he may be 14-7, but this guy's record is super underrated in my opinion. But I will be talking about that a little bit later. Let's just talk about Jack Cartwright for a little bit longer. He does have 3 wins by KO, and he's got 5 wins by submission, and that is how I do think he's going to win the fight. The pick is Jack Cartwright. Depending on how wide the odds are, if the odds are super wide, Jose Johnson is a potential, a pretty good underdog, but I do think that the blueprint to beat Jose Johnson has been written out. It's been shown by Ronnie Lawrence, and Jack Cartwright's good wrestling, and I think he can utilize that as well. Speaking of his good wrestling, Jack Cartwright also does have a submission threat. As I said, he's got 5 wins by submission, and he can work that wrestling to get a submission. He does have pretty good heavy hands as well, but at times, you know, he can be hittable on the feet, and that is where Jose Johnson potentially could find a KO potentially to win the fight. But I do think that Jack Cartwright's going to win. But let's talk about Jose Johnson before we get into his pro record, which in my opinion is underrated as well. Let's get into his amateur record. This guy went 24-13 as an amateur before turning pro, and then he started off 0-2, so he already has gone 14-5 in his last 19, but he's fought a couple of really good guys. He fought Levi Moles pretty early on in his career, and then he fought Pipe Vargas, who has beaten a lot of really good guys, or a lot of good guys have fought Pipe Vargas. He's beaten Rafael Costa, who I believe is on Dana White's Contender Series later this year. He fought Ronnie Lawrence on Contender Series in 2020. He fought Mana Martinez, got knocked out in 32 seconds, yes he did, but he's in the UFC now, and then he beat Mo Miller, and UFC probably wanted Mo Miller to win this fight because Mo Miller come into the Dana White's Contender Series 5-0. He looked really good, but Dana wasn't impressed, so they put him on Fury FC 53 looking for a fight, which is what Joseph Holmes was signed off of, and he got beaten by Jose Johnson, and Jose Johnson beat him, obviously, went on to win one more fight in 12 seconds KO, and now he's here fighting for Dana White's Contender Series a second time. Rafael Costa, as I said, he's not fighting on Dana White's Contender Series again. I'm an idiot, I got him confused with someone else, but he's still going on to do good things, so that's a good win to have on his record anyway. Jack Cartwright, as I said, is undefeated. He's also had an undefeated amateur record. One of those wins is over Reese Street, who's like 0-39, 0-40 now. But yeah, you know, like he's gone on to do pretty good things. He's beaten a lot of really good guys in his career, and he's had a pretty successful career for sure. Jose Johnson, what he brings to the table is really good Muay Thai, really good striking. I think he's definitely going to be the better striker out of the two. But what it comes down to is he doesn't. After all of this time, he still hasn't developed the greatest takedown defense in the world. Jack Cartwright, I believe, is going to exploit that. As I said, Ronnie Lawrence just laid out the blueprint to beat him. He got taken down over and over again by Ronnie Lawrence and dominated to a decision in his Dana White's Contender Series fight. Jack Cartwright, you know, he's a good wrestler, he's a good grappler, he's got a lot of submissions on his record, and I think what he's going to do is he's going to work the striking to start the fight, and then he's just going to start working the takedowns, utilizing his wrestling on Jose Johnson's somewhat poor takedown defense, and win a submission like that. But Johnson is pretty live for a KO, in my opinion. There's definitely a world where that happens, but I don't think it's this world. I do believe that Jack Cartwright is going to win the fight. Give me a submission win. I think a lot of people are on Cartwright, a lot of people are sleeping on Johnson. I think that's somewhat unfair. Johnson does have a pretty good record. I know it's 14-7, but the guys that he's fought is pretty high level. Crazy amateur background as well. But I will be siding with Cartwright. He's undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro. A lot of really good English prospects coming up right now, and I think that he's going to be one of them. So give me Jack Cartwright to win this fight by a submission. And it's also worth noting that Jose Johnson has been submitted 3 times in his professional career as well.